Everyone keeps saying Iran is the problem. They're wrong. Iran is the symptom. The real story started 2,500 years ago, and the West has been making the same mistake ever since. By the end of this video, you'll understand the Middle East better than 99% of people watching the news right now. Let's go. Instant payoff. Here's what nobody tells you. Iran is not a rogue state that appeared out of nowhere. It is the direct successor of the oldest empire on Earth. An empire that once ruled 44% of humanity. An empire that was destroyed not once, not twice, but 6 times. And rebuilt every single time. That's not weakness. That's something the West has never been able to understand. And that failure of understanding is exactly why we are where we are today. Chapter 1. The Empire that Invented Human Rights, 550 BC. A king named Cyrus does something no conqueror had ever done before. He wins. Then he lets his enemies go home. He lets them keep their gods, their language, their customs. The Cyrus cylinder, found in modern-day Iraq, is considered by many historians to be the world's first Bill of Human Rights. It now sits in the British Museum. Interestingly, the British took it from the country they would later destroy. But we'll get to that. At its peak, the Achaemenid Persian Empire stretched from Greece to India, from Egypt to Central Asia. 44% of the world's population lived under Persian rule. No empire, before or since, has governed a larger share of humanity. Think about that. Not Rome, not the Mongols, not the British Empire at its height. Persia, the civilization most people in the West can barely name. Persia ran on a system centuries ahead of its time. A royal road stretched 2,700 kilometers, with postal stations every 25 kilometers, the ancient world's version of the internet. Different cultures kept their own laws. Conquered peoples weren't enslaved. They were paid wages to build Persepolis. We found the receipts. Actual clay tablets showing workers being compensated. Then Alexander came, burned Persepolis to the ground. 3 days of fire, 50 miles of smoke. The First Persian Empire was over. Persia was not. There's a chapter 2, the civilization that absorbed its conquerors. Here's the pattern you need to understand, because it defines everything. Someone conquers Persia, then Persia conquers them back. Culturally. After Alexander dies, his generals carve up his empire. But within a generation, Persia reasserts itself through the Parthians, a dynasty that holds off the full military might of Rome for nearly 500 years, 5 centuries. Rome, the greatest military machine in the ancient world, could never fully defeat Persia. Then comes the Safavid Empire. Their capital, Ctesiphon, near modern Baghdad, is the largest city on Earth. Their engineers build dams still partially standing today. Their doctors, philosophers and mathematicians set the intellectual standard for their era. Then in 651 AD, Arab Muslim armies arrive and defeat the last Sassanid emperor in under a decade. Persia, one of the greatest civilizations in history, falls faster than anyone expected. But here is what happens next, and this is crucial. Within 2 generations, the Arab rulers are writing poetry in Persian, governing in Persian, thinking in Persian. The conquerors are absorbed by the civilization they conquered. The Abbasid Caliphate, the golden age of Islam, is Persian in everything but name. Avicenna writes the Canon of Medicine, the standard medical textbook in Europe for 600 years. Al-Biruni calculates the Earth's circumference with stunning accuracy in the 11th century. Rumi writes poetry still read by millions in the 21st. And critically, Persia develops its own branch of Islam, Shia Islam. Not just a theological distinction, a political identity, a statement of resistance. The idea that true leadership was stolen and must one day be reclaimed. That idea will echo through Iranian politics for the next 1,400 years, right up to 2026. Chapter 3. Genghis Khan couldn't kill it either. In 1219, the most destructive force in human history arrives at Persia's door, the Mongols. What follows is one of the greatest demographic catastrophes ever recorded. The city of Nishapur, population estimated at 1 million, is razed in days. Every human killed, every animal killed, every book burned. The Mongols reportedly built pyramids of skulls outside the city walls as a warning to others. Some regions of Persia lose 90% of their population. Entire irrigation systems built over centuries are destroyed in weeks. Agricultural land turns to desert. It takes 700 years for some regions to recover their pre-Mongol population levels, and yet, within 2 generations, the Mongol rulers of Persia convert to Islam. They commission Persian architecture, become patrons of Persian poetry, fund Persian scholarship. The most destructive conquerors in history become the greatest sponsors of the civilization they tried to erase. The conquerors conquered again. This is the pattern. This is what makes Iran different from almost any other nation on earth. It doesn't just survive catastrophe, it digests it. Now here's where it gets personal, because what happens next doesn't just explain Iran. It explains why the Middle East is on fire in 2026. It explains the price of oil. It explains every news headline you've seen this week. And almost nobody talks about it honestly. Stay with me. Chapter 4. The coup that created the modern Middle East. 1908. Oil is discovered in Persia. Almost immediately, the British move in. The Anglo-Persian Oil Company, later renamed British Petroleum or BP, is granted exclusive rights to extract oil from Iranian soil. In return, Iran receives a fraction of the profits, sometimes as little as 16%. For decades, British executives live in luxury compounds in Iran. Iranian workers are barred from the management cafeteria. The oil that heats British homes and fuels British warships comes from Iranian land, and Iran sees almost none of the money. This is not ancient history. People alive today had grandparents who lived through it. In 1951, a man named Mohammad Mossadegh is elected prime minister. He is a Western-educated lawyer, a Democrat, soft-spoken. Time magazine names him a Man of the Year. He stands before the Iranian parliament and says, "This is our oil, on our land. We are taking it back." Iran nationalizes the oil industry. The British are furious. They impose a global embargo on Iranian oil. The Iranian economy begins to collapse. And then, in August 1953, the CIA and British intelligence launch Operation Ajax. They hire street mobs. They bribe military officers. They spread propaganda through Iranian newspapers they secretly own. Within days, Mossadegh is arrested. The Shah, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, is reinstalled as a Western-backed autocrat. Iran's first and only democratic government is destroyed by the countries that claim to stand for democracy. This is the wound. Every Iranian leader since 1953 has pointed to this moment. Every negotiation with the West takes place in its shadow. You cannot understand a single thing about modern Iran without understanding August 1953. Chapter 5. The revolution nobody predicted. The Shah rules for 25 years after the coup. He modernizes Iran with oil money, highways, universities, land reform, women allowed to vote and work. On paper, Iran looks like a success story. But his secret police, Savak, trained by the CIA, torture thousands of political opponents, disappear hundreds. The Shah lives in palaces while rural Iranians remain desperately poor. Corruption is rampant, dissent is crushed. By 1978, something extraordinary happens. An impossible coalition forms against him. Marxists and mullahs, feminists and fundamentalists, students and shopkeepers. They have absolutely nothing in common, except that they all hate the Shah. And behind them all, broadcasting cassette tapes of his sermons from exile in Paris, Ayatollah Khomeini. On February 11th, 1979, the Shah flees. Khomeini lands in Tehran. 5 million people line the streets. What follows shocks the entire world. The US Embassy is seized. 52 Americans held hostage for 444 days. A new constitution makes an unelected religious leader, the supreme leader, more powerful than any elected official. Alcohol banned, women forced to veil. Executions of political opponents begin almost immediately. The revolution devours its own. The Democrats who helped overthrow the Shah are imprisoned or killed, and a new Iran is born. One that will spend the next 45 years as the primary adversary of American power in the Middle East. The West didn't just lose an ally, it created its most durable enemy through its own decisions starting in 1953. Chapter 6. The Road to World War III, 1980. Saddam Hussein, with American backing, American intelligence and American-supplied chemical weapons, invades Iran. The war lasts 8 years. Up to 1 million people die. Iran uses human wave tactics. Teenage boys are sent across minefields with plastic keys to paradise around their necks. The trauma of this war is seared into the national memory of every Iranian alive today. After the war, Iran makes a strategic decision: never be vulnerable again. It builds a network of proxy forces across the region: Hezbollah in Lebanon, Hamas in Gaza, Houthi militias in Yemen, Shia militias across Iraq and Syria. A ring of influence stretching from the Mediterranean to the Persian Gulf, designed so that any attack on Iran triggers responses across the entire Middle East simultaneously. Then comes the nuclear program. 2015. Years of negotiation produced the JCPOA, the Iran nuclear deal. Iran limits its enrichment. Sanctions are lifted. For a brief moment, something like normalization seems possible. 2018. Trump withdraws from the deal. Sanctions return. Iran's economy collapses again, and Iran begins enriching uranium at unprecedented speed. By 2024, Iranian scientists have enriched enough uranium for multiple nuclear warheads. They have not assembled a bomb, but the capability is there. January 2020. A US drone strike kills General Qasem Soleimani at Baghdad airport, the architect of Iran's entire proxy network. Iran fires ballistic missiles directly at US bases in Iraq. For 48 hours, the world genuinely believes it is watching the start of a war. It isn't. Not yet. March 2026. The situation has crossed a new threshold. US and Israeli strikes have targeted Iranian nuclear facilities. Iranian proxies are retaliating across the region. The Strait of Hormuz, through which 20% of the world's oil supply passes, is now flanked by warships from opposing sides. We are closer to a major regional war than at any point since 1945, and none of this is random. None of this is irrational. Every single move Iran makes traces directly back to Cyrus the Great, to 1953, to 1979, to the Iran-Iraq War. It is 2,500 years of memory, expressed as foreign policy. Whether this becomes a full regional war, nobody knows, but you now know something the news will never tell you. Iran is not acting irrationally. It is not a regime of madmen. It is a civilization with a 2,500-year memory of empire, conquest, betrayal, and survival, making calculated decisions based on that memory. You cannot understand the world in 2026 without understanding Iran, and now you do. One question before you go. Do you think the West finally learned from 1953? Let me know in the comments. And if you want to keep understanding the world the way most people never will, subscribe. Because history isn't over. It's just getting started.